So what do you think of Joe? Do
Yeah,
you, Joe?
I'm curious about this.
Okay, Joe in Kansas. It says, "What are the hosts?" Is a religious person, a theist, and says, "What are the hosts' thoughts on groups of skeptics that focus on unimportant or smaller things like astrology?" Joe, you're live with Eric and V.
Hi, Eric. Hi, V.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so first off, what's your take on this? Like, it says that you're a theist. So, like, are you wondering where our views differ from yours, or give us a little more info?
I'm just trying to get like general thoughts because maybe I've just had bad luck and I've just encountered the wrong people online or something. I don't know, but yeah. The thing about the example I give is astrology. There are other examples, but that's the one that always comes to mind. And the thought is, like, I can't tell you the number of times, I've been talking with someone, in the secular community, and the topic of astrology gets brought up, and it becomes, to hear this other person who I'm talking to talk about it, it sounds like it's ruining the world the same way that, fundamentalist Christians are ruining the world, going back to, something that's just short of theocracy.
Is that your view? Just so that we can.
No.
Okay. What's your take?
It's my thing is, just to clarify, the levels of astrology and people who charge thousands of dollars to read a palm, or the bizarre cases of people who claim to be psychics and look for missing children and that kind of stuff. That's horrible.
Yeah.
So I have no problem saying that kind of stuff is something just short of criminal.
Well, I mean, sometimes it is criminal, but it is definitely predatory.
Right. It's, yeah. But regarding just astrology generally, I mean, I've talked with some people who think that, just the fact that there's horoscopes in most newspapers is this horrible thing that needs to be put an end to. And that's to me, that is just such small potatoes that it makes the secular community seem silly to me.
You know what? I totally get it. And I feel like we in the secular community are having a tough time describing that, because I've talked about this with other people, and most of the people I've spoken to in the secular community have agreed with me on this. And the idea is that first thing we need to do is we need to fix, real and present dangers, the predators out there, right? That's stuff we need to address. With that said, though, when we talk about applying skepticism, we want to hold ourselves accountable and hold the people that we care about accountable to, having good reasons for believing the things that you believe. And so, like, on this show, I'm actually way more of a butthead about it than I am in real life, right? If somebody says they're into, like we call it woo, right? Crystal healing and all that crap. Right. If somebody's into woo, at a party, I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, I'm going to just talk at this person for the next 5 hours. No, I'm not a jerk. I lost myself for a second.
Oh, they weren't flipped.
They are for EQ.
Oh, got
it. Sorry. I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but at the same time, on this show, if somebody is wanting to talk about having a critical view of the world, then I think it's a good thing for us on this platform to be critical and to encourage people to be critical about, what they take for granted about the world around them. And so it's kind of it's a platform thing. On this platform, I think it's useful to be a butthead. But in real life, geez, I don't know. Like, if somebody's making important life decisions based on their star charts, I think you should get involved if you care about that person and don't want them to make ill-informed decisions.
Right, but
Yeah, but
just to say, I don't think. So I'm pretty sure you guys would agree that I feel like most people who read a horoscope or, look at, or have had, their palm read at one point or another in their lives, don't make enormous life decisions based on those two things.
You'd be surprised, unfortunately, but let's go with it. I don't know. Like, what do you think, V? I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know where to go from here.
I think it's a miscommunication problem a lot of the time. And I think to an extent, I fully agree with Joe here, where if you get on this topic and you're like, this is the thing that is going to ruin the world, that's like, is it though? Like, I know you've got, like, everyone has their pet things that they're like super into. If this is yours and you know a lot more than like other people do about it, and you're seeing some ties to things that are like really concerning, absolutely bring those up and like explain that. But just saying like astrology will ruin us all is like, okay, well, I mean, cool, I guess. But here's the problem. Oh.
I dropped my phone. This is going to be fun to edit.
Here's the problem here. So I agree that the same underlying problem is dangerous. The same underlying problem of thinking, like that magical thinking element, and the normalization of assuming that things outside of this physical world are actively influencing and controlling us and dictating our futures and allowing our decision-making process to be influenced by things that are not provable is a problem in general. Astrology is a benign way that manifests most of the time when you're reading your horoscope in the newspaper.
But it's still magical thinking.
But the fact that we have a culture where magical thinking is printed in the newspaper alongside the actual news is an issue. That said, if it's printed right next to the stock market exchange and like what's going on there, that's just kind of another form of magical thinking about things that don't actually exist, because that money is not real. So like the more you get into this, the more interesting it gets, because then we really have to say, okay, what is harmful about some magical thinking and helpful about other forms of it? Is it just how ingrained it is? Is it how practical it looks? Is it how fluffy the language is? Like, how are we measuring that? So I think that when people tell you things like tarot reading or astrology or woo of some kind is the most dangerous thing, they're telling you a lot about themselves. They're telling you a lot about what they think is important, which is helpful to communication. Sure. But I think what they're trying to get at a lot of the time is that underlying concern around magical thinking and how that is tied to a lot of the big problems that we have today. That's what I would interpret that to.
You're absolutely right. I know that a lot of people haven't been impacted heavily by magical thinking, and I've lost a loved one due to bad medical decisions they made because of their magical thinking. And because of that, I'm a whole lot more, incensed when I hear people that are being, that are going down that route. But you're right. It does tie back to magical thinking. Yeah.
Does that make sense, Joe?
Yes. I guess I hadn't really thought of it in that context, because again, when someone, when you're talking about, when I've had conversations with people about this subject, if astrology gets brought up, my thought goes to the kind of the predatory types of it. Like I mentioned, psychics who claim, to help people look for, children who have been missing for 20 years or whatever.
Right.
And, and charge the families, tens of thousands of dollars to do it. That's predatory and horrible and should be illegal. But I'll have a conversation and that gets brought up and I'll say, oh yeah, learning about whatever, and then says, and then they'll pivot it to, and horoscopes in the newspapers, which is to me just like infinitesimally tiny next to the predatory side of things.
But it does share that magical thinking.
Right. If your focus is harm reduction, then you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
If your focus is how is this harming actual people in the moment, I think you're spot on. And I personally think that is more useful most of the time when we're talking about what happens in the day-to-day. Who is being harmed? How can I help? But if we're going from a philosophical standpoint and pulling back and looking at the big picture, we see that the line between somebody who doesn't, get out of bed on Tuesday,
then it makes a lot more sense,
goes directly to someone pays thousands of dollars and gets taken advantage of. So.
Yeah. And by the way, Joe, this is an argument that V and I have off camera regularly. V is the pragmatist and I'm kind of the idealist. I'm using those words colloquially. There's a whole thing, but just applicability versus ought we, to do these things. As long as you're making sure that you're on the same page, V, I think you nailed that. Yeah.
Does that kind of clear things up? I mean, I don't want to speak for these people that you've been talking to. It could very well be that they are thinking that horoscopes are the worst thing in the world, in which case, let me live in that world. That's an amazing world to live in. But if they are following the line of logic that I've seen play out often in this skeptical community, it's the magical thinking and the normalization of it that opens people up to being more likely to be taken advantage of in the future.
Yeah, that's where
right. I'll admit I hadn't thought of it quite in that context.
Yeah, well, it was a really good question.
Definitely. I'm sorry, my head is now swimming with people taking their babies to chiropractors and MLM
or their cats
essential oils.
Without any understanding.
or sticking pins in their cats. Yeah, it's just
gosh.
Yeah.
But Joe, I would love to. We have so many callers. I wish we had the time, but as a religious person, I would love to get your thoughts.
Theist and religious are different things.
That's true. As a theist, do you see places where magical thinking can cause trouble in the day-to-day?
I've called in before. I'm the deist who you marked as basically an atheist.
Oh, right. Got it. Okay, then never mind.
So big fat no.
No, okay. Fair enough. I just didn't want to leave that stone unturned. Joe, I apologize for not recognizing you as that caller.
No, that's all right.
I feel like anyway, Joe.
I haven't called in a while.
Yeah, Joe, you are cool. Thank you for calling, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
I feel like I had just verbal diarrhea, and like I'm talking at him and you just like nailed it. That was really good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is something that I have to think about more than most, I feel like, because of the whole atheist witch thing, and because I read tarot and because I play in that space a little bit more. I feel like if I'm going to allow myself that, and of course speak about it publicly, I need to be aware of what the reasoning is to combat that and be
diving
able to
into the core
that.
of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just me being responsible.
Magical thinking. Love it. Very poignant.